I think we have to admit that migration and all of the fall-on effects of migration, the wave of migration in 2015 and 2016 into Europe from both war-torn and not so war-torn countries is the pressing issue now, because it affects everything. It affects the way Europeans live, it affects the job markets, it affects their ability to feel safe in their countries. Crime rates have risen, housing is affected, and frankly, people are looking around and saying, this isn't where I grew up, this isn't what I want for my children, for my families. And so I think, even though it's a hard thing to say, because it sounds cruel or it sounds xenophobic, and we're used to being, being called names, accused of nefarious things by simply noticing what we see around us. Yesterday, I mentioned a website that I discovered recently, a German website. Someone has done it as a hobby to collect simply the statistics of police-involved knife incidents across Germany. And he has a map, and for every incident, a little map, a knife goes into the German map. This is striking because no one seems to say anything about it. The knife crime is rampant. Crime generally is rampant. In fact, in Germany, we say everything is in decline except crime. So how does the European Conservative deal with that? So the European Conservative is an online journal. We have a news portal, we have analysis, commentary, essays, and we have a quarterly magazine. And the European Conservative wants to take a hard look at the problems that are facing Europe and to remind people what the West really is. So it's not simply pointing out knife crime, but it's also saying, what do we believe in? What are our foundations? What matters? Because that's the only reason to push people to try to save their own civilization.
And in the course of your work, what are some of the chief trends that concern you?
Well, I think one of the chief trends that concerns me is the dishonesty or inability of public officials to talk about the problem. I mean, I read a piece in Gript, actually, I think it was this morning, about someone who was involved in a crime whose identity was not revealed because of the situation, the unrest it might cause to reveal the identity of a perpetrator of a crime. And we see this in every single country in Europe. Well, there are a few exceptions, but I think the fact that public officials are afraid to talk about the cause and the perpetrators of crimes tells us everything we need to know about whose responsibility it is, and we have to demand transparency.
And are there any things, any trends that you see that are giving you cause for optimism in that respect in Western Europe?
Well, yeah, actually, I mean, as I was giving remarks yesterday at the New Direction Academy here in Dublin, I looked around the audience, and I would say about half of the audience were young people, let's say 40 years and younger. And they were the ones who were most engaged when I was giving my remarks. And I'll say my remarks were probably, I mean, I was a bit of a, trying to provoke some debate. And they were pretty firm on questions of migration, but also on how people should treat, let's say, the fringes of the right wing, the left wing. And the young people really see what a serious situation we're in. And that could be seen as a negative thing because the situation is so bad. But it's the young people who are really engaged and saying, we have to do something about this. Where I think people in their 40s and older have now basically said, there's nothing more to be done. It's over. I'm just going to try to live a quiet life and worry about it. Let the young people worry about it. So that's a cause for some optimism.
And in your opinion, is Europe currently on the road to success or to failure?
Oh, well, I think the negativity of my previous remarks probably foreshadows my answer, which is that I think we're on the fast track downward spiral right now. And there are glimmers of hope when we look at how ordinary Europeans are voting, and they're voting to say enough. They're saying, as the Italians say, basta, enough. But maybe not enough of them are doing that. And we do have to ask ourselves whether a few successful elections of right-wing or conservative parties is going to turn Europe around so that it can be saved. I'm not particularly optimistic about that, but I hold out some hope.